Hello, everyone. My name is Philip Palumbo. I'm the host of the Palumbo Pulse, where we interview some of the smartest and most successful portfolio managers, investors, market strategists, and economists to learn about their perspectives about their specific skill set. Today, we're with Marc Weiss of Openfield Capital. He's a partner of the firm and specializes in helping our clients navigate the emerging growth area of the technology space. Marc's track record since 2006 has averaged north of 14.45%, far surpassing the NASDAQ's 10% since that period of time. We're really excited to have Marc on board to assist us and assist our clients navigating this complicated technology space. And we're here specifically to talk about artificial intelligence and what that means to the economy and how to really profit from that. So first, Marc, thank you for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All right. So, Marc, why don't we start with first just quick background on how you got into this technology space? You've been managing money in this space since 2006, which is a fairly long time. So, quick background about you would be terrific.
Sure. Well, I started out studying engineering back in college. Graduated college in '89, and then I went to work for IBM, making semiconductor chips in Fishkill, New York. And then saw the writing on the wall that the mainframe cycle was going to end. So full employment at IBM was going to end. So went down to New York City to go to business school. And then so around, like, when was that? 93, 94, started working on Wall Street, investing in tech companies, and started Openfield Capital in a '05, '06 timeframe to invest in only emerging technology, because that's where the money is, and do it both at the public level and at the private level, because we think that in order to really understand what you're going to do in the public space, you really need to understand what's coming up on the private side.
Terrific. So, Marc, all of this hype about artificial intelligence, is it for real?
It is, but there's we don't want to overhype it. I think it's these advancements in large language models are pretty amazing, and it's very clear, for instance, like this generative AI. Your need for graphic designers are you're going to go down, or because you could do it yourself, or graphic designers are going to become much more productive because you just say, I want an image of this, and the generative AI models can make it. You can get questions answered very quickly on tough topics. You can have it generate PowerPoints for you. And where we're really seeing, I think, we're going to see a lot of impact is in code writing. There's already products out there, and actually some of these have been around, for a while. Like you look at GitHub's Copilot. There's articles written in, September of 22, before everyone got excited about ChatGPT, about how this really can, increase developer productivity by 50 to 100%. So we think there's some real wood here behind the arrow. That being said, what's really interesting is what the head of AI at Meta, Jan LeCun, said in the last 2 weeks. He goes, hey, these large language models, they can pass the bar exam. They can pass a medical licensing exam, an MBA exam. But to try to get into IIT, that's like the top, technical university in India, it performs very badly in chemistry, bad in physics, very bad in math. And so it's very good. These large languages are very good at rote learning and fluency, but bad at building mental models of the world and be able to reason with them. And so let's make sure we understand that if we didn't get this kind of big advancement in large language models, about a year and a half ago, people were talking about an AI winter, because we haven't seen a big improvement in robotics yet. We're seeing some improvements there, but not a big one yet. We haven't seen a big breakthrough in self-driving cars. It always seems to be 1 or 2 years away, but Elon Musk has been saying this since 17, 18, right? And so it's been a long time coming on those things. And so, the self-driving taxis in San Francisco, there's a lot of issues with them. So we're seeing advancements in certain areas, not everywhere. So we need to know. So I think believe the hype, but don't believe the really big hype that it's about to completely take over. There's still a lot of work to do.
Mark, if we can do this, this would be terrific. How do we dumb this down to help our audience understand, like, how does these learning language models put together this information and then put it out there to the public when they're asking these learning language models something, whether it's write me a poem or how they pass the bar exam? How is that even possible? Is there a way that you could easily and simply explain to someone how it actually works?
It's a this is it's this is actually one of the problems of these neural nets is that the people who know it best don't really have a great answer because no, they're considered black boxes. So, and it's why and there's a lot of terminology being thrown around here. So there's overall AI, and within AI, there's really kind of two buckets. There's machine learning, which is really advanced statistics, and there you actually can see the model, and it's considered AI because you use the data to make the model. You're not programming the model. The model's being made by the data, and then with that you can make predictions about the future. But with machine learning things, you can actually see, oh, it's this factor and this factor, and this is how they relate to each other. These neural nets, they just kind of work. And these new large language models, technology actually developed out of Google called transformers that just enable them to learn concepts better than prior neural net models. And a lot of it has to do with the scale of the model, the amount of data that you're using. For instance, like with language, you want to be able to look at if you say when you're in an email chain, you don't necessarily want to look back one email back. You may need to look back, 10, 20 emails to really understand context. So the ability to do those associations between, say, a pronoun you used here and something many paragraphs back has to do with the size and the scale of the model.
So a human is feeding data into these models,
yes,
to help them learn, correct?
Yes,
So there is a human element to help these learning language models learn and then dissect the information, et cetera, correct?
Well, to some extent, that's called supervised learning, where the humans label everything and they put it into the neural net, and then a lot of times it's unsupervised learning, where you just throw in raw data and you get a model out. So there's both types of models, and I am not expert enough to tell you when one's better than the other. I just know that there's work are done on both, and anything you do to get the humans out of the equation, the better, because you want it to be as automated as possible.
So as far as the accuracy of these learning language models, so if you ask these models whatever it is that you want to learn or have written, et cetera, right? As far as the accuracy, where are we with that?
Well, they've definitely improved. I mean, there's I was trying to find this. I know I saved it somewhere. And this is why I need an AI co-pilot, which showed like at GPT-2 versus 3 versus 4 in terms of where it was on the bar exam. And so past ones couldn't pass the bar exam. Now it can. Now, what I do think is interesting, and I believe this is true, but I don't want you to take this as money to the bank. That what some people are thinking is that the improvement from, say, GPT-2 to 3 or 3.5 was much greater than, say, from GPT-3 to GPT-4. That we may, even though we've seen these large advancements, the returns from here, while they will be positive, they may not be the perception of accelerating improvement. It may just be steady gains to slightly slower rate of gains going forward. And it doesn't mean those things are not significant, because if before you can't pass the bar exam and now you can,
right,
that's a significant step forward. And obviously they're going to get better from here. But are they going to just suddenly become generally intelligent and able to do everything we can do overnight? we don't think that's going to happen.
So artificial intelligence. So how is this going to assist the economy or help a company? How do you see this transforming into our world, our economy, and companies?
Well, it's going to, well, first of all, it's important to know that there's the generative AI, which people are getting very excited about, and that's going to help people, perhaps learn better, right? It's a way for, the students are already using this to learn topics better. That hurt Chegg's business, which is why the stock went down so hard.
Right.
So it can help people, you know, be able to ask higher order questions. So if Google helped us to a certain extent, be able to access lots of data, but a lot of times it takes I could be on Google for an hour trying to find things, and sometimes I can go to ChatGPT and I can get an answer in 5 minutes. So it could help. So it could help improve search productivity. It can help you write code. The CEO of Atlassian was asked a very interesting question last week. The question was, are we going to need fewer programmers because ChatGPT makes programming so much more productive? And his answer was, there's no shortage of demand for software. It's always about the cost to develop it. And that's why you have all these meetings with developers, like what features more important? Where should we put our resources? So if we could, double the output of programmers, that's going to be a huge impact to the economy. We're going to get we're going to be able to increase our level of automation of software very rapidly. So we think that's very positive. But it's also, there's a lot of AI going that's not generative AI, where you're starting to see some real game-changing technologies. Now, a lot of these companies are private, but there's a company in New York City called Page.ai. I think it's PAIGE.ai. They, pathology today is still almost all analog, and it's subject to huge amounts of errors. You take cells from your body, you put it on a slide, and then a pathologist looks at it and tries to make it somewhat quantitative what they see. Is it cancer? How much cancer? And it's, a lot of times people cannot, on the entire slide, they may miss key things. Well, with, now there's studies have been done. It shows that with AI assist from Page AI, a human plus AI together, much better than a pathologist on its own. So
Wow.
this is going to take over all of pathology. There's a company we've invested in called Vista AI. They automate MRI machines. They automate the taking of images. A lot of images are not good quality images. You want to be able to analyze that right away, know to retake it. A lot of the stuff is setting the image up. It's very very inconvenient for the operator, very stressful work. A lot of that can be automated now. And this company is just starting to ship. So we're starting to see AI, not even, beyond just the generative AI, starting to really take hold in a lot of different sectors. AI in drug discovery is really starting to work.
Right.
We know from some of the companies that we've invested in privately that they can find and this is a form of generative AI, they can predict how molecules behave, so they can search the chemical space, find molecules that can hit targets, and these things are, we were already seeing results that are better than what other molecules that are already in trials. We have much better characteristics, and all this was done with AI. So we think the terrible drug success rate, 95% failure rate. If we can go from a 5% success rate to 7.5%, 10%, huge home run. So we're starting to see AI in a lot of places, but the generative AI is very exciting because, for the first time, AI can pass a bar exam. So that's
So
and we know, like, my attorney complained to me a month ago. He goes, I see lots of attorneys are writing contracts with ChatGPT.
that's funny.
So yeah.
So Mark, what inning do you think we're in terms of the benefits to the economy in a positive way with AI? What inning do you think?
It's it's just people kind of getting, it's people are coming to the stadium. People are warming up on the field.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we're really
Oh,
early stages here. And
it's very, very early.
so who do you see now that we just talked about the positives of AI, right? So what are the negatives to AI? Who's it not the negatives of AI, but who's AI going to hurt? What industries, employees, workers, skilled workers versus non-skilled workers? What do we see? What does that look like if we're just getting going here? If we're just in the dugout and we haven't even got out in the field yet, right? What does it look like, and who's going to be affected the most?
Well, to see this is the great irony, right? And it goes back to what LeCun said, right? It could pass the bar exam. Um, so to me, that means this could affect knowledge workers first before it affects there's you don't see robots walking around with a hammer and nails helping to build a house, right? You and by the way, that a carpenter is a certain trained skill. I'm sure there's some training that you do when you're inside of a warehouse packing boxes, but it's not the same level as a carpenter or a plumber. That
Right,
requires
right.
greater level of skill. We don't have robots that pack boxes. We just don't. We're trying to get there. There's people working on it, but it goes back to what he says. We AI that can build mental models in the world and reason with that. When you have that breakthrough, well, then yes, then AI will be able to pack boxes, maybe help you build
And
homes.
how far
Uh,
off we are from that?
I don't know. I think it could be as short as 3 to 5 years, maybe shorter. I don't think it's 10 to 20, but it's a different. We need something else to get us there. It's not what you can't do is extrapolate. We've had the success of large language models, so we're going to solve this problem next within 6 months. That doesn't follow. I think
Right.
what LeCun is talking about is we need a new direction in AI to address that issue, and he has said so publicly.
So look, just LeCun, you said his name a couple
Yeah,
times.
Jan LeCun. He's
And
he's the head. He's the head of AI at Meta. But it's also there's a book, a really good book written by Jeff Hawkins called I think it's called Thousand Brains or Thousand Brain Theory, and it was on Bill Gates's list of 5 must-read books in his Christmas 2021 book list. And so this book is about here's how the mammalian neocortex functions. This is why mammals are smarter than other animals. We have the neocortex is the new brain that surrounds the more primitive brain that we share with reptiles and birds. And so it's how we're able to reason and build a model of the world. And he goes, well, this architecture is very different than neural networks. So even though neural networks are supposed to be based on human biology, they were developed, the original neural networks were developed in the 1980s, and it was based on 1970s neuroscience. So neuroscience has learned a lot of different things since then, and a lot of that stuff is not currently in neural networks. Now, some of those concepts of neuroscience are starting to get into neural networks. A lot of people are working on sparsity as a way of making neural networks behave better, but a lot of the sparsity concepts come right out of neuroscience. But we're still architecture-wise, we're very different the way our brain works. And remember, it's really impressive what these large language models do, but they require football-sized data centers
of course,
and
right,
millions and millions of dollars
right.
of GPUs and megawatts of power. This is 25 megawatts of power, and we can outdo it, right? We can pass a bar exam and pack a box and drive a car. Chat GPT cannot do all those things. It can
Right.
pass
So
the bar
Mark,
exam.
so we agree that, and I've spoken to a private equity firm about this, that manufacturing was pushed over to China and non-skilled workers, that was an issue for them. Many people lost their jobs, right?
Yes.
But then the economy shifts and they figure it out. This time around, we're looking at skilled jobs being lost. And the private equity company was talking about but that's good for the economy. It's a shift in the economy. And I'm just curious
Yeah.
to think, I'm curious. I'm wondering what you think about that. Where would these skilled workers go? What does that mean to them exactly?
Well, it depends. Like for instance, like if you get really good at, Chat GPT, be able to give answers, that that might affect call center workers. We might need, a half to a third of call center workers. But you know, it's not clear. What it might do is for companies that don't have call centers today, they can now have call centers because you reduce the cost of call centers,
Right.
and maybe there's no net change in call center jobs at all. The programmers, that was the question. A lot of software stocks have been being, I think, negatively impacted because they think, well, if ChatGPT can write code, then maybe we don't need all this packaged software.
Right.
But I think that Atlassian CEO has it nailed. There is no shortage in demand of what we want to do with software. So if we make software developers much more productive, I don't think we have any loss of jobs with software developers. I just think we're gonna get more out of them, and it's going to make the economy more productive. So
It's gonna be a shift. It's gonna make the economy, like you said, and I agree with that. It's gonna make the economy more productive. So one
exactly.
area that it's gonna be a shift. So what I want to do is dig a little bit deeper and peel the onion back a little bit. I know you can get into great detail with things. So in order for artificial intelligence to work and do its thing, you need chips, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so the biggest manufacturer of chips is uh, is Taiwan Semiconductor, correct?
Correct.
Now, NVIDIA essentially calls Taiwan Semiconductor and says, make these chips this way. And that's their H100s, which are the most popular chips that are out there that are being utilized for artificial intelligence. Is that an accurate statement?
Yes.
Okay. So, but the problem is that the semiconductor firms, they can't make enough chips to keep up with the demand. Is that correct?
Well, I think that's there's articles out there that it says it's really hard for people to get the H100s. And
Right.
now some people think that's because NVIDIA is purposely withholding a lot of these H100s that are customers because they're want to build their own AI cloud. So this is where it gets interesting. And this is why, Google developed their TPU because they don't want to be dependent on NVIDIA. And there was a rumor,
Now,
I think
when you say Google developed their own TPU,
yeah,
a chip or
it's called the Tensor Processing Unit, and it's their own chip, and it does exactly
what the H100 does?
it does what the H100 does. Now they will say it works 50% better, but everyone has their own ways of gaming. How well you do on certain tests, but Google makes their own chip, and they're going to TSMC directly. They're not sharing gross profit with NVIDIA. And there was a rumor the other day that Microsoft was talking to AMD about the same thing, and that Microsoft has their own chips being developed. And I think the reason is just like a lot of these companies, Amazon included, have been working on chips to, they're working with ARM cores to try to not use as much Intel or AMD chips. They're going to do the same thing here. So I think because if you look at the cost of a query, an AI query today running on NVIDIA hardware, it's very expensive. And some people have done estimates that if every Google search was run through that type of hardware, Google would have to spend $100 billion
Wow.
on CapEx. And so it gets very costly very quickly. And that's also a reason why there's alternative chip architectures I think are going to be looked at. There's some interesting startups there, and there's two approaches. There's trying to replace the digital approach of NVIDIA. Then there's companies working on what are called neuromorphic chips,
Right.
which
Which we
would be
spoke about.
ultra low power, and with very high compute with very little cost and very little electricity. And so there's alternatives there.
Okay, so everybody's looking to try to make a better mousetrap, right? Like always, that's just the way the world works.
Yes.
So when it comes to making money on this artificial intelligence movement, some of this, in my opinion, smells like the dot-com era, right? Where it's like company name dot AI, company name dot AI, right? So they come across as when they are involved in AI, and then money gets thrown at them, whether it's in the privates or the public market. So when we think about, I'm gonna give an example, like Nvidia today, right? From the standpoint of where they're trading at from a forward multiple, right? They're trading at pretty stupid multiples, and a lot of that is on anticipation of the demand of their H100 chips, and we know that's why the stock is trading where it's trading. And obviously,
Yes.
with their earnings coming out, I think in about 2 weeks, it's going to be super fascinating to see what the results are going to be, and that's and more so on the forward guidance, right, Mark? So
Yes.
I'm wondering, in your view, and just using NVIDIA as an example, and other publics where you can make money on AI, have these AI related public companies got ahead of themselves in terms of valuations because of the hype?
It's like it's I wouldn't say it's a well, there's some parallels you could say to, past hype cycles, but there's I would say, look, we just had a big breakthrough with ChatGPT. So
Right.
there's some real meat to this bone. I would argue that where we've seen, worse behavior was, in crypto. To me, crypto was a lot more .com like, of just, launch a coin, and like in SPACs as well, right? A lot of speculation with SPACs, companies that were, pre-revenue going public. So I think SPACs was much more like the .com thing and crypto. Whereas with AI, there's a lot of, like, I think a lot of real good stuff being done with a lot of these private companies.
But there also was with the .com era, right? I mean, there was amazingly positive things that
Oh,
was the result. It transformed
oh,
everything
there, oh,
past
oh,
10 years.
oh, there was, but but it was a if you look at the 90s, right, how many search engine companies came public, right? I mean, there was Lycos, there was Excite, there was
Right,
Yahoo,
right, of
right? And
course,
then in the end, almost none of them were really relevant, right?
correct.
There was AOL at home. I mean, only Google was relevant.
and
Yeah.
that's exactly my point with this, right? So you have the relevant companies, which we just talked about, and then you have others that are going to come out and try to be relevant. In the end, they're just going to basically fall apart. And I kind of feel like, and we know the way markets work, like that's probably where we're going. I'm strictly talking about from the investment
Yes.
standpoint. So if you had to say to yourself, in your view, that's publicly traded today, what companies do you think that would be the true beneficiaries of this movement? And I just
Well,
want my audience to know that this is not a recommendation for you for you to buy any of these investments that Mark is going to say or sell. We're just strictly just educating and learning about what's best out there.
well, I think there's companies that have um, lots of data, um, have the ability to train neural networks. So a lot of so a decent amount of the large companies, have a lot of data. Now, among those companies, right, because Microsoft has a big stake in OpenAI and an alliance with them, right? They've benefited very well, right? So if you look at, Microsoft, from what I can tell, this is not exactly mark to market, but it looks like it's around, 25, 26 times 25, 26 free cash flow. Whereas Google is about half of that multiple, right? Now, does that mean you should buy Google and not own Microsoft? Well, I think Microsoft's in a pretty good position to take share. Google has the ability to lose share, right? Their search
Right,
business is threatened.
right.
Now, net, if Google opens up their AI, I think there's a lot of new market that they can grab. So both them and Microsoft can do well. So all else being equal, probably Google a better buy to Microsoft. But Microsoft, if we're at the early stages here, and the real revenue from OpenAI and ChatGPT really hasn't kicked in yet in terms of Microsoft's revenue, 26, 25 times, calendar year 25, 26 free cash flow is not outrageous. Now, it does put them at a premium to other large cap companies. It's a higher multiple than, Meta, or, certainly higher multiple than Google, at a higher multiple than Apple on EV to free cash flow. Apple could be a big beneficiary. They have a lot of data, and it's not clear if they've used it yet. Siri is, I don't think Siri's really been that cutting edge for a while.
No, I
So
agree.
I think Apple might be able to do things that are interesting. But our view is, again, the big problem with big cap stocks, companies that are between 1.5 trillion and 2.5 trillion, how are you going to make 10 times your money on? Right? We just don't know if we're gonna. I think if you're Tesla and you sell cars, you can get to the revenue level that might be able to support a 10-20 billion dollar market cap. But if you're selling phones and or doing what Microsoft's doing, we don't. I mean, you might be able to get doubles and triples in these names, but we don't think you make 10 times your money. Where we do think you can make a lot of money is a lot of like the mid cap to small cap software names as they add AI to themselves. So companies like ServiceNow, Snowflake, Atlassian, they're all starting to embed. First of all, they've all been adding AI to their products,
Right.
but now they're going to be adding a lot more. They're going to be adding generative AI. Snowflake is in the business of pulling in all your corporate data so you can do stuff with it. Well, what do you want to do with it? You want to use it to make predictions. That's
Right.
AI.
Right.
So we think those companies have the chance to be 5-10 baggers, mostly because they're starting at a lower market cap. It's really hard for Apple from 2.5 trillion to get to 25 trillion. I just don't think that's a good bet.
I agree with you. I agree with you. All right, so Mark, I want to end it with two other things I want to ask. Jeffrey Hinton, who's the godfather of AI, right? So-called inventor, quote unquote. Why he left Google, right? He was a big player there, and now he's out there with major concerns and almost regrets that he started this whole AI movement. Why? What are his concerns, and do you agree with him?
I agree with him to an extent. I think he brings up some very good points. There is significant risk here. You've already seen these videos, right? You can make movies, make videos. So, can you make a fake video of Biden saying we're going to attack Russia, right? That looks indistinguishable from reality. That sort of misinformation, disinformation,
Right.
is
serious.
it's a serious risk.
Absolutely.
Obviously we're going to have to do things again. I think probably the best way to do that, there'll be I think you'll be able to have AI that might be able to figure out the difference between real and generative AI, and look at how the pixels were generated and try to figure out, small differences that humans won't be able to detect, but maybe machines can. So it's not, so the answer to the problems of AI might be more AI. So we might be, and again, in many ways, it's like cybersecurity, right? The cybersecurity guys keep getting better, but then there's, a lot of these, next gen security companies like, the CrowdStrikes, the Zscalers, the Cloudflares.
Right.
They use lots of AI to fight that. So I think that actually will create investment opportunities, but in some ways that's a tax, right? If people are using it for nefarious reasons and they have to buy software to fight against it, that becomes a little bit of a tax. But we think the gains will certainly outweigh those concerns. Although I think we should be concerned about it. And I keep going back to LeCun. I think when people hear about Hinton quitting over this, he a couple of years back, he went in a different direction because he was also not seeing, the sensory motor advancements that we need to really make AI robotics happen. But I don't want to, getting back to the names you should watch, there's some interesting names out there that are using AI and robotics today. And these are some next gen AI robotics. I mean, there's only a couple of them that are public. There's AutoStore in Norway. There's Symbotic in the US. But Walmart is going to automate all their distribution centers with Symbotic. And Symbotic's gained a bunch of other contracts outside of Walmart. But this is why Walmart put $150 million into them, because they have some very advanced AI, which is they take stuff in on trucks in the distribution centers. they break apart these pallets. They go through this big facility where everything gets rerouted, but then the robots know how to stack them up. So they have to figure out how to fit together and plan to pack all the boxes. Now, the next thing they're going to go do is figure out how to pack inside the box, and that's under development. But that's the thing that needs to happen next. But they have incredible technology, but there's only like today, the future world, I think we're going to have 20, 30 robotics companies to invest in. Today, there's a next generation AI robotics. There's kind of like 2 to 3. There's not many that are public yet, but there'll be more coming. There's a lot at the private level that we're watching.
Marc, within 2 minutes, right? So you did an awesome job, helping educate us about artificial intelligence and all these different questions that I have in my head, and hopefully it was helpful to my audience. So artificial intelligence, obviously, incredible breakthrough. We can see there the light at the end of the tunnel. In your view, and we talk about there are various other emerging technologies that are out there. In your opinion, what's after artificial intelligence?
Well, I would
just give me one. I know there's numerous, but give me one that you believe can be what AI is doing today.
Well, there's AI is going to impact all of them, with probably the exception of quantum. But augmented reality, early disease detection, all that stuff requires a lot of knowledge of
AI is
of
almost,
DNA
AI
and
is
proteins.
AI is almost like the core of everything, which is going to help lift augmented reality. Quantum computing would be its own. Quantum computing.
Yeah, quantum computing is most likely on its own. Although some people think quantum computing will make AI better. I don't know enough about to dispute that. And I know there's people on both sides of that, and I let them debate it. It's above my pay grade. But just like the way to think of it is this way: if you look at cloud, like mobile computing and cloud computing, right? If we didn't have the iPhone, cloud computing would still be a big phenomenon, right? We'd all be accessing our PCs. We'd all be accessing the Google Cloud and Amazon Cloud through our PCs. But the fact that we access those cloud services also through the iPhone and Android phones has made cloud bigger than it would be otherwise,
right,
and vice versa. So we think AI is going to make all these other spaces bigger. It's going to make augmented reality bigger than it would have been otherwise. In fact, without AI, augmented reality can't work, right? It's like if I'm looking at something, I want the augmented reality to tell me what it is. So I need really good image recognition to make that happen. So augmented reality doesn't even work without AI. And cancer detection, it's so much data involved, but all these liquid biopsy companies want to detect cancer early. It just doesn't work without AI.
Right.
But in the end, quantum is the one that we think could maybe be as impactful as AI. And like I said before, I think AI might be able to double drug success rate from say 5% to 10%. I think quantum could get it to 100%. We would never have a drug that fails.
So how far?
That would change the world in a massive way.
How far are we away from? I understand. I mean, quantum computing is way down the road. Is that accurate?
No, I don't think it's that accurate. I think we have it with before 2030, possibly sooner. And what I do believe is that there's going to be probably one right way to make it. I believe the privates here may be better positioned than the public, so I don't want to count anyone out yet. But there's the pathway to get to a 1 million qubit machine. You need to do things we think a little differently in the way Google and IBM are doing it. So we think but we're invested, we're going to talk our book a little bit. We're invested in some of these companies at the private level, but what we know from their roadmaps, we think the world may be pleasantly surprised. Some people think it's a never, or people they think it's well beyond 2030, 2035, right, 2040. We think it could happen 2027, 2030 timeframe, which is not that far away.
So I want to quick answer this last thing, which I'm interested in. So self-driving, which I know there is self-driving capabilities today, right? In Arizona, they ran a self-driving program, which I believe is still ongoing. When does self-driving become universal, where everyone is comfortable with an Uber driver coming to your home, which is being self-driven. In your view, when do you see that happening?
Boy, that's a hard one. I think I think it's possible that it's before 2030. And maybe it's only 2, 3 years away. Uh, I really want to see next. My understanding is Tesla's kind of vision only approach is not going to work. I think that they need to add, I think they're adding advanced radar. They don't like LiDAR,
Right.
but so we think they're they're probably the most advanced, I think, in terms of AI software.
Right.
But I think they've been hamstrung by the vision only approach. I think that's fixable. But I also sometimes think about what LeCun is saying, that we need an AI that that can really can build a model of the world, so it can pass math and pass physics exams and chemistry the way large language models can't. We might be dependent on that type of breakthrough to really have self-driving work. And so I'm not sure we need that. I think we might need that, and that makes it hard for me to predict. But I'm also happy to see that we know they talked about in the last conference call, Tesla. They said they have a new platform they're internally at the company that they call Robotaxi, which I think kind of says it all. Like, they think that's the one that's going to be it, even though they say the cars on the road today are self-driving capable. I think what he's talking about is the AI hardware they have is capable of doing it, but what they don't have is the radar sensors. That's going to be the new cars. So I'm not sure it's going to be true that the value of your current Tesla is going to go up with self-driving software only. I think you need to get these new sensors. So we'll see. I'd like to say by 2030, I think we'll have it. Hopefully sooner.
A lot of great things going on by 2030.
Yeah.
Mark, it's been a pleasure, as always, talking to you about this awesome subject matter. Investors love emerging technology, being involved with that. A lot of these valuations have come down from its peak. I believe there's more to go in the short term here, but over the long term, I do think you get some really good returns. So thank you for your time today. I appreciate it very much. Look forward, as always, working with you. Thank you for your partnership, and we'll be speaking soon.